Good evening and welcome to Widespread Grace 2022. My name is Curt Bloom, and as mentioned, for the past 31 years, I've had the privilege of serving as the radio announcer of the Birmingham Barons. We are excited to be hosting tonight's event here at Regions Field, my home away from home in the heart of the Magic City, as we celebrate the outstanding work being done by Red Mountain Grace. Our ballpark here opened in 2013. It was about $62 million back then. Ushered in a new era of Barons baseball that connected the organization with the great city that bears its name. It also played an important part in the revitalization of downtown Birmingham. Now, as you can see, the stadium provides beautiful views of Birmingham, the skyline, Railroad Park to what would be my right and your left. And then when we take a look over my left and your right, you see Children's of Alabama, the UAB Hospital, and what you don't see is my radio booth, which is in the middle, one floor up and then in the middle. As I was talking to Chad Pilcher, my friend and member of the board here, I've done every game here at the ballpark and every game at the old ballpark, and there's a feeling, important part of the actual game itself, maybe bases loaded, maybe a very important out that needs to happen, and all of a sudden the helicopter comes, and I kind of stop in my mind. I can't stop my mouth, but in my mind, and I'm thinking, as important as what is in front of me, we got to get this guy out, we got to strike this guy out, or this guy needs a base hit. And it must be countless. I don't know if it's hundreds or thousands in 10 years. Multiply that by maybe 3 or 4 times a night where the helicopter's coming in, it lands on Children's Hospital, and I say to myself, I say, dear God, please bless them and take care of them. I'm here at a silly ballpark calling a baseball game that means nothing. The helicopter circles, settles in, and I know something really important is about to happen. And there are a lot of people in this room that take it from there and then bring it to here. So I just want to get a little personal touch and let you know, since 2013, every game, and again, it could be a crucial moment, and I'm on radio, and I hear the helicopter, and my left eye looks up, and I just think about what's going on, and that helicopter is a little bit more important than a 3-2 count with the bases loaded, and we got our cleanup batter up. On any given night, there are hundreds of children, adults, and their families who are staying in these world-class institutions to receive outstanding medical care, but they're also facing challenging times and difficult situations. And that is why Red Mountain Grace is honored to partner with these great hospitals to provide gracious hospitality, housing, and to alleviate some of the burden that these patients and their families are undergoing and that they are facing. For the past 7 years, Red Mountain Grace has hosted the Widespread Grace event to celebrate its mission to honor the families it has served and to raise funds to continue to work into the future. Tonight we will reflect on the impact that Red Mountain Grace has made on the Birmingham community and honor the families who have been welcomed through our doors. We will also lay out a vision for the future. We ask you to help ensure that Red Mountain Grace continues to engage in its mission and to provide a home away from home for families who are traveling to Birmingham from long distance medical care. And it's one thing, when I got to Birmingham 30 plus years ago, I didn't know it at the time, but I do know now that from North Carolina down, if you're going to get sick, hurt, or injured, this is where you want to be in this city, and we are blessed. I've never, since I've gotten here, never taken it for granted. About the incredible care that our city has given, and now we have an organization that helps out these hospitals as well. We are honored that you chose us this evening, and we'd like to take the time, of course, to thank our sponsors, because this night would not be possible without them. So, we would like to especially thank the following, and unlike when I do my baseball banquets, you can clap as soon as you hear their name. We'll start off with the Rivera family. Fast, slow motion. course, our partners across the street, we thank UAB. Thanks also to Stone River. And finally, Carolyn Chafin. Please give them all a round of applause collectively. I would like to recognize and thank the Red Mountain Grace staff, apartment adopters, the volunteers, the board of directors, the junior board members, and our many partners. Thank you for all that you do. You will hear the word hospitality used many times throughout the night because that is the core of what Red Mountain Grace seeks to provide. But the reality is that Red Mountain Grace is a special organization because of its special people. We are excited tonight to celebrate the impact of this outstanding organization on this special night with this incredible group. To begin our program, please join me in welcoming Red Mountain Grace Executive Director, Mr. Austin Hardison.
Community and family. Our nearby friends and close neighbors. Churches and co-workers. We depend on them every single day. When patients and caretakers arrive in Birmingham to receive long-term specialized medical care, their lives are uprooted, facing great uncertainty and financial strain without community and family. How can they be comforted, provided for? Tonight, we gather to celebrate hospitality, graciously given in 2022. We're celebrating less unsettledness and more connectedness, less uncertainty and more rest. We're celebrating more fully furnished, clean, and welcoming housing for patients, caretakers, and families during long-term medical stay. But our hopes are even greater. Let's inspire one another to serve big. Let's embrace a greater community. As we open more welcoming doors beyond Birmingham, serve more patients, more caregivers, and more families, we ask you, the Red Mountain Grace family, will you join us? Let's be even more graciously hospitable.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Austin Hardison. In the 7th grade, I was a bat boy for the Birmingham Barons, but for the past 2 years, I've had the honor of being our executive director at Red Mountain Grace. Some of you have been a part of Red Mountain Grace since the beginning, and some of you are finding out that Red Mountain Grace is the best kept secret in Birmingham tonight. If you had a chance to spend some time in the other room prior to dinner, hopefully you were able to experience a few ways that RMG strives to be more than an apartment, that we're a safe, clean, and affordable home for our guests that are traveling to the Magic City. Tonight, I see represented in those that are gathered here, our board, our volunteers, our apartment adopters, medical professionals, and even past guests. And honestly, that's my favorite thing about Red Mountain Grace. That's just more than an apartment. So for the next few minutes, I'd like to take some time to celebrate the past, embrace the present, and look to the future of our mission of gracious hospitality. Since our inception 9 years ago, with just 2 apartments that we still operate today, we have welcomed over 900 families through our doors. In serving those families, we've seen the difference that fully furnished apartments can make in the lives of families receiving long-term medical care. And not just through an apartment, but through the role that gracious hospitality plays. And what I mean by that is, if you're a guest of Red Mountain Grace, you get to stay for $10 a night. When we talk about fully furnished apartments, that's what we displayed for you in that room, but that's a place that a guest can come and cook a meal, where they can wash their clothes, where they can seek respite from the beeps and trauma of the hospital. And in addition to those 2 factors, it's proximity to world-class medical care. Curt alluded to the views that we have tonight, and man, it is great to be in this ballpark. But if you look out this window, we are in the heart of the city. If you look out that window, he alluded to the children's logo in UAB. And our goal and our mission, we exist to be right here in the heart of downtown to serve our guests. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but we currently operate 20 apartments across the south side. This is crucial, again, proximity, because 70% of our guests are receiving world-class medical care at UAB. This is in part because of the condition that they're receiving. UAB is the only level 1 trauma hospital in the state. And again, as a native of Birmingham, I worked at UAB for a little bit of time, but we as a community take for granted the institution of world-class healthcare that we have right in our backyard. So we're serving guests that are receiving cancer treatment through the O'Neill Comprehensive Cancer Center. We're serving guests that are here for heart, lung, kidney transplants, and even served UAB's first uterine transplant. We're also serving guests that are here at the ICU. A guest that we served this year, they were from Jackson, Mississippi. They were vacationing on Smith Lake, and he fell and had an accident. So with UAB being the only level 1 trauma hospital in the state, Curt's already alluded to the helicopters, we are serving those patients and their families. RMG becomes our guest family, right? We kind of throw that word family around a lot in business, but truly we become our guest family, which is only possible because of our staff and our network of volunteers and our apartment adopters. And if you haven't met Lindsay Smith tonight, she's in the back, but you need to meet her because nobody represents gracious hospitality like she does. And she is our care coordinator, she's a licensed social worker, and she's on the front lines of welcoming our guests into fully furnished apartments. And I would invite you to tag along to a check-in with us, because when a guest walks into a Red Mountain Grace apartment, the look on their face of respite and thoughtfulness and intent, it's magic. When we talk about our volunteers, this night is possible because of generosity, but also because of their generosity of their time in setting this up and putting this display together. Our volunteers get involved in 4 different ways. We say that you can clean, cater, you can celebrate, and serve, right? And so what that means is we rely on volunteers to clean units in between guests, right? When we talk about catering, it's bringing a home-cooked meal or bringing a meal to guests. Celebrating, when we have guests that stay with us, you've seen the bicycle, you've seen the birthday cards out there, we want to celebrate our guests. Not only birthdays and 40th anniversaries, but treatment milestones as well. And that serve element is what you see tonight, giving of your time and opening new apartments. I think of some of our volunteers, the Johnson family here tonight, and what Brad and Kristen do in engaging their kids to clean an apartment. They're not only just supporting us through being apartment adopters, but they invite their friends and their small group in. I'm forever changed because in the height of COVID, they had a drive-by birthday party from one of our guests from Mississippi. I think of Jen and Ryan DeVilleneuve, who invite their 5 kids in to clean toilets and make beds. I think of Wally Mertz, when Ron Paulus came and stayed with us, and he asked for some free weights, and Wally lent him his free weights for the duration of his proton therapy treatment. I think of Ashley Weaver and Debbie Tidwell, who are former staff of Red Mountain Grace. They are no longer on the payroll, but they took 2 days off to make this night possible. I think of a book club of moms who welcomed a mom who had a premature baby, and they put together a welcome basket with her. And not to give too much information, but I mean, they got her a nursing bra. The reason Cookie Fix is on your table is because they put together Cookie Fix, the best cookies in Birmingham, to welcome her and to make her feel known when she checked in the apartment. So what these families and these volunteers have modeled to me came to light when my wife and I were recently at a parenting conference led by David Thomas of Daymark Counseling in Nashville. David talked about the importance of building resilience in your children, right? And he said how service and volunteering helps move kids towards purpose. And the key action that you're instilling in your children there is that my actions matter. And I'm humbled and emotional because the partners of Red Mountain Grace come alongside of us and champion gracious hospitality. Your actions matter so much. Our guests benefit from it, we benefit from it, and I dare say that you benefit from it. So in addition to our volunteers, it's our apartment adopters and monthly donors who graciously give and provide their resources for us to have fully furnished apartments. And not just have them, but to afford that at $10 a night. Y'all, you can't get a Chick-fil-A number one combo for $10 a night. Our average length of stay is 43 days this year. So at 43 days, that guest would pay out of pocket $430. I called the Hilton right down the street, and their rate tonight was $165 for a room tonight. But just for simple math, right? Let's just say for $100 a night, that same length of 43 days in a Red Mountain Grace apartment would cost that family $4,300, right? That's a cost savings of $4,000. That is impactful. What a grace. And that's done through the generosity of our donors, and that's why we're here tonight, to continue to extend gracious hospitality. So where do we go from here? There are families who will come to Birmingham for medical care, and they don't know it yet. And our job is to have space to welcome them. Preparing for the future, ensuring gracious hospitality continues in this city and beyond starts with two things. That first thing is a sustainable model. And what, as a board and as an organization, what we're exploring is to actually purchase some of our own units. And what I mean by that, over the past 2 years of me being our executive director, our apartment rent has gone up 70%. So the multifamily boom and craze, and also specifically to the proximity that we have to be to medical care, that's not sustainable. So we want to step up our game and to own our own units. And the need is ever increasing, especially with the volatile climate. You know that, we know that. And just in the last 36 hours, we've received 7 referrals, applications to stay with Red Mountain Grace. 7 in the last 36 hours. That's a third of the units that we operate. So the need continues to increase. So the first is a sustainable model, and a part of that is not compromising on who we are and what we represent. We've got to be in the neighborhood of downtown Birmingham. That's a calling card of ours. Callie often references in our conversations that for our units and for our office, we want to be a place that we can hear the sirens of the ambulances and hear the helicopters overhead. So proximity is crucial to our model. And the second is scalable, right? Sustainable and scalable. We want to take Red Mountain Grace to another city. And we believe that our model of housing families through multifamily can do this. We are looking at other cities that have world-class academic medical centers and children's hospitals. So tonight, I want to remind us where we started, what we're committed to, and invite you to partner in furthering our mission of gracious hospitality. A moment ago, I said what I love about Red Mountain Grace is our holistic approach, and everybody that's involved with that, providing care for our neighbors in some of the most challenging seasons. Tonight, when you hear from our speakers, I invite you to lean in a little bit and see where your actions can matter more. We checked a guest in yesterday from Georgia, and he's here for cancer treatment, and he mentioned to Lindsay that just last week he was building a wheelchair ramp for somebody through his church. And what was interesting, though, is that he said, I was on the giving end, but today I find myself on the receiving end, staying at Red Mountain Grace. We can't do this alone, and as you'll hear, and maybe you've experienced, the power of community and gracious hospitality is real. So thank you for celebrating with us tonight and committing to welcoming our neighbors. I'd like to welcome up the Castle family, and while they haven't stayed in a Red Mountain Grace unit, I think their story will resonate with you, and it presents a light of where your actions matter more. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dwight. It's my wife Stephanie. We really are honored to be here with you all tonight and to share just a tiny little bit of our story and what that has looked like. Now, as Austin mentioned, our story is a little bit interesting for tonight because we actually have not personally benefited from the amazing work of Red Mountain Grace. But I think as you'll hear in our story, we can attest to the need and to the value of a ministry like this. Our story took us out of Birmingham, and we would have loved to have had a ministry like Red Mountain Grace here with us. So I'll let my wife share a little more of our story first.
So 2 years ago, this October, my husband and I went in for an 8-week ultrasound. We thought would be routine, and we found out we were having twins. And we already have 3 kids at home, 3 wild kids at home. So twins was a surprising news to begin with. And then they told us that it would be a high-risk pregnancy, and they also threw out the possibility that they might be conjoined. And obviously conjoined twins are very rare, and so you never think that that's going to happen to you. But it did. Later, it was confirmed they were conjoined. It's a picture of our daughters, Suzanne and Elizabeth. They were conjoined from their sternum to their belly button, and they were given a good prognosis for life and for separation. But Birmingham, our doctor felt like we should go to Philadelphia. So we traveled to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, which is the nation's leading hospital for conjoined twins. We left in April of 2021, just my husband and I. We flew to Philadelphia thinking we would just be there for a few weeks, and then we would get to bring our daughters home with us to grow and get strong and get ready for the surgical process that would begin months later. But after birth, again, we were surprised by some new medical things we didn't know, and that was not going to be possible. So we, after 2 months of that, we moved our 3 children to Philadelphia, and we spent a total of 10 months in Philadelphia. In December of last year, the girls were successfully separated. And on February 11th, after 295 days in the hospital, Susanna was discharged to our home away from home in Philly. And then at the end of that month, we flew home, and Elizabeth was transferred to Children's of Alabama by medical transport. And on March 11th, after 323 days of care in the NICU, Elizabeth got to come home, and our family was finally reunited here in Birmingham. And now they're 18 months. They are mostly healthy and almost walking. So we still have a lot of follow-up appointments. We still have hospitalizations here, and we will have further surgeries. But we're so thankful to be back in Birmingham, and we're thankful to have Children's of Alabama, just our backyard, essentially.
Now, there are a lot of things that we could talk about that were challenging along our journey. A lot of things. But I think one that maybe surprised us and maybe would surprise a lot of people here is the difficulty of securing housing when you have to move to a different city for a medical issue with your family. For us, it was actually a huge stressor on top of what we were already experiencing. There really weren't many or any good options in a city as big as Philadelphia with a hospital as well known as the Children's Hospital there. The Ronald McDonald House was not an option for us due to COVID and due to the size of our family, due to certain restrictions that they had and transportation and all kinds of rules. There was another ministry that individuals could open up their homes and have you in, but due to COVID and the proximity being out away from the city, those weren't options either. And so when we moved, we ended up just moving into a hotel. And after a short stay in our first hotel, we realized that we couldn't stay there because it really wasn't safe. It wasn't in a good part of town. So we moved into our second hotel, where we ended up staying for 2 months. After 2 months of being away from our older children who were back here in Birmingham, we realized that probably the 13th floor of a one-room hotel wasn't good for our 5 people, so we moved again. And this time we were looking for something a little different. We found a condo that was close to the hospital, and it was available for 1 month. And it was through a friend of a friend, and it was furnished, and they were on vacation for the summer, and we took what we could get, literally about the week before we didn't have any place to stay. After a month, we began our search again, and yet again, right before, about several days before we didn't have anywhere to stay, we moved into another condo, this time for 2 months, but this one wasn't furnished. So we were in a city where we didn't know many people, and we were moving into an unfurnished apartment or condo that we didn't want to spend a lot of money on furniture, so we're trying to put out word to the people we did know asking for things. And after those first 4, 5, 6 months with our kids, we realized they were going to burn down the city of Philadelphia if we did not have some green space, which doesn't exist in a large city. It didn't exist in that condo. So we were about to start the school year, and now we had to take into consideration proximity. We had to take into the hospital, but also the school system, and also transportation, and also the costs for living. We were paying for our mortgage on our house back here, and people who we were going to have to get to watch our house and our dog back here and take care of them, and safety and privacy and all of the factors that you never think about. So we started looking for an actual home, and the housing market's been a little bit crazy. There were no homes available, and the ones that weren't close to the hospital, and they were extremely expensive. And we finally started looking at a few options. They all wanted us to sign a minimum of a 2-year lease. We finally found one option that we were just hours away from signing a 1-year lease that was going to cost us $50,000, even though we only needed it for probably another 6 months, when another friend of a friend, through the Lord's provision, offered up their home that they had moved out of. And so we were able to stay there for the following 6 months. So we moved 5 times in our 10 months in Philadelphia, and I probably don't need to describe to you how unstabilizing that was for our family, for our children. I'm going to let Stephanie talk about what it's like for a second to be in a hospital for a long time, but then when you have to move to hotel, to condo, to different condo, your kids start getting really confused about where they are. They don't know where home is, they don't know where they want to go, and they don't want to go. And it is really unbelievable the value that you begin to see having just stability and having consistency and really a place to lay your head that's going to be the same in another week or a month. So
I just want to draw attention to, yes, $50,000. That is what we were actually considering paying, which is just crazy. So praise the Lord that He provided something. But I don't think we have to convince you that we've had a really hard year, and anyone going through something like a medical crisis like this is having a lot to deal with. For us, it was most definitely the hardest thing we've ever done in our life. And I'm willing to bet that it's the same for all the families that have stayed with Red Mountain Grace. And you can't prepare for something like that. You just can't. And so you literally are just putting one foot in front of the other each day, doing what has to be done, and asking the Lord to make up for what you can't do. But the Lord's grace is sufficient. The amount of decisions that we had to make were overwhelming, and not just like, where are we going to live, but where are we going to get our groceries, and what am I going to make for dinner when I've been at the hospital all day? Like, you still have normal life to deal with. And then on top of that, just the medical complexity. And living in a hospital, if you ever spent any time in a hospital, you know you don't want to. The food is terrible. The beeping is terrible. It's a lot of hard things. It's not somewhere that you necessarily want to spend your time. So, while we're trying to figure all that out, we're trying to do it in an unfamiliar city where we don't have our community. Thankfully, we have an amazing church family here that supported us in so many ways, and a lot of you are here tonight, so thank you. And Dwight had some family in that area, so we had like a little bit of community to draw from, but nothing like when you're home and have your people. So I wanted to paint a little picture of kind of what it's like to spend time in a hospital. I think I mentioned the beeping, but it's constant. And if you hear the wrong beep, it means there's something wrong with your child. And to the ones who are like just waiting to go home, that one beep can set you back days, weeks, who knows how long. So the beeping is really hard. During COVID, they encourage you not to speak to other families, which was especially hard. To get to a bathroom or to get to a water fountain, you have to, at least we did, you had to like scan out of the area and then wait for someone to scan you back in. So it felt like a jail all the time, just being there. So anyway, on top of all these things, I think I'm just trying to say it's a really hard place to be. And you shouldn't have to worry about where you're going to live. Or do you have support if, something happens and you need a babysitter, or you need someone to run an errand real quick or something. And I think that stability in that community is something that's really special about Red Mountain Grace.
Yeah, one of the things that Austin said that I really appreciate is that Red Mountain Grace offers much more than just an apartment. It's gracious hospitality, there's love, there's support system, there's advocates, there's community, and consistency and stability. And I think for us, when we look back on our year, the Lord sustained us and people's kindness and generosity sustained us. But you better believe I would have given my right arm to have Red Mountain Grace, to have one place where we could lay our heads down for that duration of our time, and to have a group of people who would have surrounded us and cared for us. And so it's our goal, now that we're back here, to spread the word and to support families who are walking through that here. It's one of those things that unless you have walked down this sort of road, you probably don't understand exactly all of the ways that it is difficult on a family. And so I hope that tonight can kind of paint that picture, but the ways that it can be so life-giving to give those families just a little bit of stability in the middle of such a hard time. So thank you all.
She could fit in the palm of my hand. They had all the stuff connected to her, but she was alive. If it wouldn't have been for the community, honestly, I don't know where we would have been. I'm the principal here at the Alexandria High School in Alexandria, Alabama, in Calhoun County. It's a tight-knit community. It's just got that family Mayberry feeling. Ashley was working. She texted me. I'll never forget it. She said, "Don't freak out, but my water broke. They're taking me to UAB." We still had 13 weeks left until Olivia Grace is even supposed to be born. Well, we just dropped everything that I had, got in the car. I just didn't know the ramifications of what really was going on. But when I walked into the ER and I saw the look on everybody's faces, I knew that something bad had happened. I was trying to just be as positive as I could, but being in the NICU is unbelievable, the amount of emotions that you go through. You have a lot more conversations with God than you've ever had in your life. When she finally arrived, I'll never forget, the best way I can describe it was she looked like a baby bird. When they're hatched, she was translucent. She could fit in the palm of my hand. She was born on July 27th. She wasn't due until October 18th. Olivia Grace was in an incubator for 4.5 months until she was born. But she was alive. Then it started the realization, we're going to be here a while. Did I think that we were going to be there for 4.5 months? I had no idea. We went in July, and just a whole bunch of unknowns. How are we supposed to do this? We had to stay at a Hilton downtown Birmingham. We were going to drain our bank account if it needed to be. We weren't going to leave our daughter. We applied for Red Mountain Grace. We stayed in that hotel for 2 days before Red Mountain called and said, hey, we have an apartment. It was home, and they made it feel like home. I mean, it was just peace. They provided food, the apartment, anything that we needed. You get really close to the medical professionals because you're with them all day. But the folks that we met through Red Mountain Grace, I'm telling you, we wouldn't ever make it without them. It's a lot more than just an apartment. I want people to understand that. The relationships that they build with their families, it's amazing. We made it home right before Christmas. Olivia Grace is thriving compared to what we thought was inevitable whenever all this first began. Going from being the size of a dollar bill, literally, to being what she is now is just, it's God. The amount of people that she's reached, and I fully believe that she's going to conquer the world one day, for sure. So, as most of you heard, I'm a principal, so if I look out in the crowd and any of you are on your cell phone, you're going straight to ISD. Truth be told, I'm actually really soft, and the first time I saw this video a couple days ago, I cried like a baby in my office. And I may do it, probably will do it. I'm up here today. Just don't tell any of my kids back home in Alexandria, because I try to put on the front around them. But I want to start off, this is such a humbling experience for me to even be here and asked to be in this situation. Austin and Lindsay and everybody at Red Mountain Grace, they tell us, thank you for being here, thank you for being here. It don't have anything to do with us. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. Cool tidbit, with the Castle family, I followed them on Facebook during the entire time we were in the hospital and in the NICU, and we had a Facebook page that one of the things that helped us so much was that we heard so many stories and had so many people that reached out to us about what they've been through and that it's going to be okay, and the prayers and just the pictures of kids that they had that had been in similar situations, graduating valedictorian and doing all kinds of stuff. And that was probably just one of the most humbling things for us was, we're not alone. God's got this, whatever it may be. But social media has its purpose. And usually I talk about Auburn football, and I don't want to talk much about it this year, but talk about my family, I talk about my kids at school, and one of the very first things I thought about whenever this happened was asking for prayers, and it led to a overwhelming amount of people reaching out, and because of social media and because of a lot of people's heart, they reached Red Mountain Grace, and the rest is history. And I got a little bit of a script I'm going to read over, and I'll snowball a little bit and go off tangent and tell some stories as I'm through it, because that kind of hit on a lot of our story. But I want to explain to the best of my ability and give Red Mountain Grace the light. I mean, on the night of July 23rd, our lives were changed forever. 13 weeks early, my beautiful wife, she's in the crowd. The only reason she's not telling this story because she's superhero, she's super mom. I'm just the one with a big mouth. but she's an RN, and she was working, and her water broke while she was at work, and she texted me, called me, and gave me about as little information as she possibly could. So I'm at my house by myself, just wondering what's going on, because I'm a worrier by nature, and she didn't want me to worry. And I'm a man. I was oblivious to really what was going on, just I'm owning it. And she told me, one of the last conversations I had with her before I drove to the hospital was that they called a helicopter. So, dropped everything I had. I don't even know if I locked the door or closed it on the way out. But I went straight to the hospital, and it was a surreal experience when you're walking into a hospital full of medical professionals and you see the look on their faces, and you immediately know that something's wrong. Fast forward 4.5 months later, we got to go home, +1, and that's where our story began. And I want to emphasize the word home. A lot of people know our story through our Facebook page, and one of my new friends, he picked up on it. He's here today. Chip Scarborough's at NBC. He picked up on the story and he started talking about us, and it grew some legs, and people started showing interest, and it's just mind blowing to me. And they were coming and giving prayers and prayers and prayers and prayers. But Olivia Grace, our daughter, is the nucleus and the driving factor of this entire story. However, it's the in between that not only needs its own chapter in our story, but it truthfully deserves its own book. I'm a principal at a 5A school in rural Alabama. One of my go-to lines has always been to my kids, don't take the little things for granted, because one day you'll realize how they were actually the biggest. And let me tell you that home is by far something that we take for granted, just like it's any other routine. And what I mean by that is you go home every day, you rinse and repeat, kick off your shoes, you watch TV, you may have a nice plate of food at the dinner table, you may talk about work a little bit, you may do your laundry. It's knowing when you don't have that luxury anymore, when life really hits you in the gut. God has a way of making himself known during the times that you need him most, but what I realized through this adventure is that he makes himself known even during what we think are the most normal days. Those are the days when he's really prevalent. And one thing that I've learned through this is I need to have a lot more conversations with him just for waking up opposed from when I need something. God placed Red Mountain Grace in our lives by way of a friend from college on social media that I haven't seen nor talked to since I was at Jackson State University. We went from living in a hospital room to a hotel in downtown Birmingham for almost $100 a night to having our own apartment and an add-on family. This has been said a couple times, and I didn't know if it was part of the script or not, but it's funny that it's been said a few times, and it's truth be told, Red Mountain Grace is more than an apartment. The physical nature of their apartments are a very small component of what they truly are. It's the love, it's the faith, it's the sense of normalcy that you felt that you lost. If it weren't for RMG, I can assure you I have no idea what we would have done, nor where we would be today. And there's nothing cliche about that. That is the God's honest truth. I'm in education, so, I don't drive a Range Rover or a Land Rover or anything, so we pinch and pennies pretty hardcore around the Deason household. But we were going to do whatever we could to figure out how to be here for our daughter. But Red Mountain Grace, they kept our family together by not only providing shelter, but also love. I throw that word around a lot. Being a guy, sometimes it's not cool or it's not macho to say. But I'm here to tell you, you need to tell those that you care about and you love them as freely as you breathe the air. Our almost 6-year-old daughter, she's 5 at the time, Kate, she, just a tidbit of our story, she was the one that named Olivia Grace. Before there was any kind of conversations about us having another child, she would tell me and Ashley, I want a baby sister. And we made the mistake one evening by saying, well, you know, what if we have a little boy? 3 hours later, in a tantrum and a whole bunch of tears, we just said, we're not having a boy, God, come on, you know, do something. So I went from imagining what my son's name would sound like over the speakers on a Friday night to thinking about how to do a hair bow and everything else. But she named her. She wanted a baby sister, and she wanted to name her Olivia Grace. And that was prior to her even being born or even being a thing. And she had to be with her sister during this 4.5 months through FaceTime. So you can imagine it's hard enough on an adult, but when you got a 5-year-old that's been pumped for her entire life about having a little sister, and then she finally gets one, and we have to uproot over an hour away from home, and she doesn't get to see her, and she's having to look through her through FaceTime at her sister in an incubator, which she don't have a clue. Probably she thought it was a spaceship. I'm telling you, it makes you think about things a whole lot differently. But by faithfulness, Red Mountain Grace allowed us an opportunity to have Sawyer Kate stay with us in Birmingham, as myself and Ashley took shifts at the hospital with Olivia Grace because kids weren't allowed in the hospital. She was getting ready to start pre-K, and I'm holding on to every day that I can say this, but she loves school. And I know there's going to be a time where she's not going to love school. And she was about to start pre-K, and we had to make the difficult decision to unenroll her. But we prayed about it, and what made that transition so much easier was Red Mountain Grace. We were family. I'm fortunate to have a wonderful community in Alexandria that stepped up to the plate and absolutely helped us out to no end. You know, I'm a very prideful guy, and I had so many people asking to give us money and everything, and no, thank you, your prayers are good enough. And then I had one particular person tell me, Jason, shut your mouth, you're robbing me of a blessing. And I said, okay. And if it weren't for that difficult conversation, we needed the money, and we needed the help. And I swallowed my pride, and communities around where we're from came out of the woodwork for us. So we were away from home, but because of Red Mountain Grace, it didn't feel like it. You know, they just gave us the opportunity to remain an intact family. They gave us the opportunity to have normalcy, whatever that is anymore. You know, over the past 3 or 4 years, it's hard to remember what normal used to be. And then you throw in a micro preemie child into it, normal kind of gets kicked out of the dictionary in your book. They sent us to the zoo. They sent us to a Barons game. They provided Thanksgiving dinner for us. They brought a tree with lights and set up Christmas in our apartment. And I cannot explain, I hope my words can convey to you what I'm trying to tell you. That is the most unbelievable feeling when you realize that you got another family and some people that truly care about you, and they're going to go out of your way and do this for you. It's an organization that revolves around love. They truly care, nurture, and love the people they come in contact with. I can't come to Birmingham now, whether it's for Olivia Grace's appointments or even just a trip, without smiling or frowning, because we miss our routine, and that's strange. I mean, that makes no sense whatsoever with all the things that we went through. But the reason why I say that is we went from having our lives turned upside down, meeting strangers, and then becoming family. Our story could have been written completely different with all the unknowns we faced. However, we're blessed beyond measure because of God, the medical professionals at UAB and Children's Hospital, and unequivocally, undoubtedly, Red Mountain Grace. Our apartment complex was, I could walk to dreamland, which was a terrible place for me to be. If y'all can't tell, I'm 6'4", 175. I eat like I'm 380. But it was within earshot. Mr. Bloom was talking earlier about the helicopters. I'll never forget that. Every night that I visited, that sound just resonates with me. And just knowing something happened for them to be there. But they provided an apartment close, and even though we weren't there with her 24/7, we were there at earshot, and we could be there in a moment's notice if we needed to be, because she was born 17 ounces, and we just didn't know what was going to happen. And I consider myself a Christian. I'm a God-fearing man, but like I said in the video, I talk to God more during those 4.5 months than I talked to a lot of my friends. And when we were placed in the situation that we were in, I remember when we left, piggybacking off of what I said, it was bittersweet, because you build those relationships with Red Mountain Grace. And there might be some of you in here that have experienced that. There may be some people in here that want to donate to the cause, and there's some people that just simply got invited because they know some people. Whatever my platform is, whether I'm a principal in Alexandria, if I move on to do other things, if the good Lord sees me fit to call me home tomorrow, there's one thing that I want everybody in this room to understand. I would not be standing up here today having this conversation with you, and I wouldn't have my daughter, regardless of the tubes, the oxygen she has every day, or a beautiful little almost 6-year-old Spitfire that gets to see her sister every day, if it was not for Red Mountain Grace. On surface level, it is 100% housing. You see it. It's a housing. They provide housing. But I want people to really understand that it is so much more than that. I am a relationship-oriented person. I tell my kids in school, as much as I want you to make straight A's, I really don't care. If you're a good person and you show good character and you respect one another, that means the world to me. And when I had to leave work for a month and a half, essentially, before I started driving back and forth an hour and a half to work, because I only had so many sick days, that family aspect, you talked about, you worry about your dogs at the house, you worry about your yard getting mowed, you take it for granted. But when you're able to go to an apartment during an awful situation, you deal with cards that you've been dealt, but it is an incredible feeling to have people in your corner that will do whatever they can when you are at your lowest. And that is exactly what Red Mountain Grace did for us. And every single person, Austin, Lindsay, the volunteers, anyone that played a hand in our adventure that we had over 4.5 months here, thank you. I love you. Our family loves you. And I truthfully hope that one day there isn't a person in Birmingham, Alabama, or anywhere in the Southeast that doesn't know what Red Mountain Grace is synonymous with, and that is love. It is love, and it is love. God bless all of you. I appreciate you having me. And I think this is the time where I need to turn it over to Mr. Bloom before I start crying or saying something that'll probably get me in trouble, because I'm used to talking to teenagers doing something foolish. But God bless all of you. I love you, and I appreciate you.
It says here, make sure that you thank the Castle and Deason families for sharing their incredible stories. Of course, they are blessed. They felt blessed because of the people in this room. But to the Castle and Deason families, I think I could speak for many of us in here that we now also feel blessed that you shared your stories, that we will go home to our children, our families, and we'll understand how lucky that we are that we didn't have to go through what you did. But if, in case we do, we know that there's an incredible organization with about a couple of hundred people in here right now that are working their tails off to make it better. So I personally thank the Castle and Deason families for sharing their stories, and a blessing for me as well. Thank you, appreciate that. We hope that the stories that you've heard here tonight help you understand how impactful and how important Red Mountain Grace is and how it is planning to grow and move into the future. Red Mountain Grace is changing people's lives forever. So please, at this time, please join me in welcoming Red Mountain Grace Board President, Callie Priest.
Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate it. It's good to have you in the room with us tonight, just kind of in a different way than hearing your voice from the stadium. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's been a good night, right? It's been good stories. It's been encouraging, uplifting. And let me just say, as I look out into the room, it's just good to see your faces, and we appreciate you being here with us. We could not do what we do without you all. And so let me say thank you. I also want to extend just my gratitude to our staff, our volunteers, our incredible board of directors, and our junior board. Again, without them, none of this work would be possible. On behalf then of the board of directors, we want you to know how much we appreciate each of you and your commitment to Red Mountain Grace and to our mission. We're honored to get to walk alongside you and want you to know that we could not do what we do without you in the room. So tonight, you've heard two very similar stories that represent the over 900 families that we've served since opening our doors. 900 families. That is over 900 families that we pray that we have made an eternal impact on. And thank you to both of those families for just reminding us that we have made eternal impacts on your lives. There are countless others, though, that we wish to serve, that we long to serve, that we want to be able to say yes to when we receive those requests. I just got word that the helicopter has come in 3 times since we've been sitting here this evening. So we want to be able to say yes to those who are needing us. Our wait list is long, and it continues to get longer and longer. I often say, if you've ever been to an event like this, I always say this thing, but I believe it. I want it to be known that outside of these city walls and even around the world, that if you ever have to come to a place called Birmingham, Alabama, because you are in need of the world-class health care that our city offers, that yes, there is a place, there is a physical place that is open for you, that is ready to welcome you in. It's a place for you to find rest in these heavy days of medical diagnosis. It's a place for you to live, to call home. But more importantly, that there is a people called Red Mountain Grace that are here, that are ready, with open doors, with open hands, with open arms, to walk alongside of you, to welcome you, and to provide the support that you need as you walk through and navigate long-term hospital stays. So tonight, I would love for you to consider, what does it mean to be a part of this Red Mountain Grace community? So first, let me ask you, could you consider, how would you leverage your influence for the mission of Red Mountain Grace? Who in your network of people need to know the stories of Red Mountain Grace? Who in your circle of friends need to know about our mission? Do you know people who need our services? Do you need to, how can you share the message to a family that might be needing to come to UAB or to St. Vincent's or Grandview's or any of the other hospitals that we have here that we could serve? Our community partners are vital to who we are. And so as we even think about moving to new cities, who are the people in new cities that you may know that we need to know so that we can begin to expand our mission to new places? We welcome your influence. We welcome your influence to tell the story of Red Mountain Grace so that we can bring others closer to proximity to the service and the mission that we provide. Second, I would love for you to consider, how is it that you could serve with Red Mountain Grace? Yes, Red Mountain Grace provides apartments, the physical space, the location for you to live. But our impact comes at the hands of the people who make our great organization successful. It's the community of volunteers that bring the meals, that do the birthday parties. It's the volunteer that sits with a family, that shares the hope of Christ, that has ministry of presence, that prays to encourage you. We enter into the hard moments with our families. And so think about it. How can you mobilize your family, your friends, your children, your church, your business, your colleagues? How could you mobilize them? Everyone has a part, no matter your experience, your expertise, your preferences. We want everyone to be able to come in and enter into our mission. I remember actually the first time that I met Mark Miles. Mark and his wife are generous partners with us here at Red Mountain Grace. They're apartment adopters for us. He is an industry leader here in our city, and the first time that I met him, he was standing in the kitchen of one of our apartments putting a fresh coat of paint on the wall because we were about to welcome a new family in. He was there to help us make sure that it looked good, that it was fresh, and that it was ready to receive a new guest. Or, like my friend Sterling Davis, who happens to be sitting as an honored guest at my table tonight. Sterling is a local high school senior here in Birmingham. He's also a Boy Scout. He himself very familiar with medical diagnosis that is hard. He's the recipient of excellent care from Children's Hospital of Alabama. And he wanted to do something to help us increase our mission here at Red Mountain Grace. And so he used his creativity, he used his abilities, and for his final project as an Eagle Scout, he designed and produced these beautiful plaques. You can see this here on the screen, that go in each of our apartments, that put our brand in the apartment, but more importantly, it helps to show those guests that are coming into our apartment who it is that has adopted that apartment, so they can be linked to those that are providing that mission for them. So the list of opportunities goes on and on and on. We would welcome you to join in and to volunteer and to use the things that God has given you to partner with us. We need your partnership. We need your talents. We need your gifts. We also acknowledge that none of this would be possible without the resources that our community gives. It's an interesting season in our world, as we all know. Interesting that it's very expensive to live, right now. So costs are rising, and for us here at Red Mountain Grace, it's becoming more expensive to acquire and maintain the services that we provide. In addition, though, that means that there are opportunities, and it means that we get to get creative, to be innovative, to maximize our resources, our dollar, so that we can have maximum impact. We want to, though, have plans for future growth. We want to look to the future. We want to scale this model. We're looking at strategic cities that we can begin to enter in and provide these services that exist in other opportunities. But that requires, then, the generous support of our friends and our partners in our community. So tonight, I would like to also ask you to consider how you might give your resources to help us at Red Mountain Grace. The goal for tonight's gathering is that we would collectively give $100,000. The goal will fulfill our desire to help us sustain our mission for this year, but also then to scale this model and to grow in the future. So, just a little practical thing here. On your table, there should be an envelope. And if you open that envelope, there should be a card that's in that envelope. If you would, take that out, and if you would, take a minute to consider what would be a meaningful gift for you and your family to give to Red Mountain Grace. If you'd like to give cash, check, you can do that and put that in an envelope, but there's also a QR code that's on the card there if you'd like to do that through credit card. Or you can go to the website that should be on the screens, right now. If you'll take a moment, just do that. And then once you fill that card out, you can actually put it back into the envelope that's on the table. But as I noted before, giving is much more than just your resources. If you'd like to get more involved through volunteering, possibly recruiting your church or your business to join in with us, there should be an opportunity there on that card as well that you can indicate that, and our staff will connect with you and bring you into the mission of Red Mountain Grace. Once you've completed it, again, feel free to put it into the envelope and our staff will pick it up. It's been my honor, it's been my joy to be able to serve as board president for the last few years. It's more an honor to be in the room with you this evening to celebrate what God has accomplished through Red Mountain Grace. And I want to give you a few minutes to be able to fill that card out. And so as you do, so take your time, as you do, I do want to invite Jason Carroll, who is the founder of Red Mountain Grace, and also some of our original founding board members to the stage for a quick presentation that will end our evening tonight. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for being here tonight. I'm Jason Carroll, founder of Red Mountain Grace. So we established Red Mountain Grace in 2013 because we had a passion for serving families who were experiencing a difficult time due to an unforeseen medical situation. And we wanted to walk side by side with these families as they experienced that season of their life. When developing the business plan for Red Mountain Grace and what it would become, I asked these guys on stage with me to buy into that vision and that mission and to join me on the journey. And I'm thankful that they did. And obviously in those beginning years, I'm still glad that they hang out with me after the work that we put in, or maybe I asked them to put in, right? So we built the organization from scratch. It was a bootstrap type situation. And we started with 2 apartments and a dream. And so that dream is now approaching 1,000 families served since inception. So in the early days, we had planned to provide housing to patients, but we quickly learned that a place to sleep was just not enough. I think that's been the resounding theme tonight. And that if we wanted to make a real impact in the lives of our guests, we had to do more. A great friend once told me that our ultimate purpose here on earth as human beings was to love one another. He would go into more detail and he would say, you know, there is a different kind of love from someone when that person can go into a difficult moment with another person and kind of be there with them. Not just love from afar, but not afraid to enter in a difficult situation with them. And that's a special kind of love. And that's kind of what we're built upon. And so with that said, that led to an idea for a patient coordinator role who would serve as the point of contact for our patients during their stay. But in reality, this position becomes so much more than that. So, going off script here, Chad. So, but if we had transcribed a job description for this role, it would have asked for experience, let's see, in janitorial services, operations, social services, customer service, pastoral care, a bookkeeper, and if you had some experience at 2 Men in the Truck, that would be awesome. So if anybody has that, let's, patient coordinator, the original one anyway. So Debbie Tidwell, God graciously gives us just, he's there when we need him, right? So we found that person, and that's pretty incredible, right? So right off the bat, Debbie Tidwell, she was our first employee that Red Mountain Grace ever hired, and for a while she was our only employee. She was the perfect person for this job, and the best decision we ever made. Debbie put her heart and soul into her work at Red Mountain Grace and obviously impacted hundreds of lives through her love and dedication to this organization and those that we serve. Many of you actually became involved with Red Mountain Grace because of Debbie. And for many people, Debbie is Red Mountain Grace. Debbie exemplifies gracious hospitality, and we are grateful for the incredible work that she has done over the years to impact lives of our guests and everyone else who she's encountered with this incredible organization. We would not be what we are today without Debbie. Debbie was the first person our guests met when they arrived in their apartment to check in. And we have numerous guests tell us that they immediately felt better the second she arrived, and that is the truth. I remember those first few years, they were like, and then we met Debbie, right? So she spent countless hours making sure that everything ran smoothly and that no detail was too small for Debbie to handle. She is the person guests would call when they needed something. She was the point of contact for our social workers and hospital partners, and she created the volunteer program. And much of the work that we do today was developed by Debbie. Debbie is a servant, and through her work with Red Mountain Grace, she truly served as the hands and feet of Jesus. Red Mountain Grace would not be, again, what it is today without Debbie Tidwell. And tonight, we are thrilled to announce the establishment of the Debbie Tidwell Service Award. And we are even more excited to recognize the recipient of the first ever Debbie Tidwell Service Award. That would be Miss Debbie Tidwell. Debbie, can you join us? Everyone, this is Chad Pilcher, our Vice President of the Board. He's going to a few closing remarks, but we're done. So.
Yeah, and like Debbie always does, she did so much here tonight to make tonight happen, and as did you by being here. So we want to thank you so much. You'll see these beautiful arrangements that are on your table. There's one chair at each table has a ribbon tied to the bottom of it. If you have that ribbon, please use that and collect the flowers as a centerpiece. You're welcome to take those home. If you have any questions, come see any board member, ask us. We'd be happy to answer it. And just please know that we are honored by your presence tonight and hope that you've learned something about Red Mountain Grace and the impact that we're having here in the Birmingham community. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.